Rain had been falling for hours, each drop hammering against the tin roofs of Briar's End like a warning. The town smelled of damp wood and earth, and the fog curling through the narrow streets seemed almost alive. Somewhere in the distance, a woman screamed, long and ragged, but it faded before anyone could reach her. Eli Tanner, recently returned to his hometown after 10 years, paused under the flickering street lamp. Something moved in the shadows across the empty square, a figure too tall, too still to be human. He squinted, heart hammering, but the fog swallowed it before he could take a step closer. A soft sound followed him, a whisper curling around the edges of his mind. "Don't stay. Don't look." He spun. Nothing, just the fog. A crooked old sign at the edge of the square read, "Welcome to Briar's End. Watch the rain." The words seemed to tremble. Eli's stomach knotted. He should leave. He should run. But something, a pull he couldn't name, kept him rooted. Then, a knock. 3 slow raps, hollow and echoing, came from the doorway of the abandoned sheriff's office. It wasn't a person. He could feel it. Something old, patient, waiting. He didn't answer. He couldn't. And yet, as the fog thickened, he knew. It had already chosen him. Eli had returned to Briar's End for reasons he couldn't fully explain. 10 years ago, he had left with nothing but a suitcase full of memories he refused to revisit. Now the town seemed smaller, tighter, but somehow heavier, as if every house and street carried a secret just out of reach. The damp air clung to his skin, carrying faint murmurs of old conversations, like voices from another time. He walked past the corner diner, its neon sign buzzing faintly. Inside, shadows moved, though the place had been abandoned for years. A crooked waitress, her face pale and eyes hollow, looked up and whispered, "You shouldn't be here." "Not tonight." Eli laughed nervously, shaking his head. "I just needed to see it again." Her stare didn't waver. "The town remembers. The rain remembers. And it never forgets who you are." The words crawled under his skin. He hurried past, trying to convince himself they were nonsense, town gossip dressed as superstition. Still, the streets seemed to twist around him. Alleys he didn't remember, corners that shouldn't exist, and every time he thought he was alone, the fog whispered something. He found his old family home at the edge of town. Windows boarded, garden overgrown, the swing in the yard squeaking as if moved by unseen hands. Memories rose unbidden, childhood games, laughter. Then Clara, the girl who had vanished one rainy night, and the posters that never faded from the sheriff's office windows. He remembered the first warning, a neighbor tapping at his window as a boy. Trembling. "Don't go out when the rain comes," she had said. "It's not the water you should fear. It's what comes with it." Now, decades later, the words were a knife twisting in his gut. Eli stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned beneath his weight. The house smelled of rot and wet earth, and for a moment he felt eyes on him, from the walls, from the shadows, from the fog outside. Inside, dust choked the air. He ran a hand over the mantel, the furniture, each artifact frozen in time. A photograph of his parents stared back, smiling, oblivious, yet something in their eyes seemed wrong, almost pleading. A sudden thud upstairs made him jump. The sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, crossed the floorboards above him. He froze. Then from the darkness a voice. "Eli." Just a whisper, but it carried the weight of decades. His heart raced. He didn't recognize it, yet it felt familiar, intimate, and terrifying. He ran up the stairs. Nothing, just the creak of the old house. He reached the master bedroom. The window was open, rain spilling in, soaking the floor. On the bed lay a single, wet poster. "Have you seen Clara Tanner?" The edges fluttered in the wind as if alive. And for the first time in years, Eli understood. Briar's End hadn't let go of its secrets. It had been waiting. The whispers grew louder. The walls seemed to breathe. And outside, the rain fell harder, drumming a rhythm he could not escape. Something ancient and patient was stirring. Something that remembered. Something that had never forgotten him. He was not home. He was already inside a story that had begun long before he returned, and there was no leaving. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the town had not changed. Its streets seemed suspended in some liminal space, dripping with silence, every puddle reflecting shapes that weren't quite there. Eli wandered through Briar's End, notebook in hand, though he had no intention of writing. He was hunting the truth, whatever shape it might take. The first stop was the diner, the one that had once smelled of frying bacon and burnt coffee. It was open now, though the sign above it flickered and buzzed faintly, like a dying memory. Inside, the air was warm and thick with the scent of old grease. "Back again?" asked the waitress, her voice barely a whisper. She looked older, her features drawn tight, but her eyes were sharp, knowing. I just needed coffee," Eli said, though his throat felt dry. "You don't come for coffee," she said. "You come because the rain called you." "It always does," Eli frowned. "The rain?" Her gaze darted toward the window. "The rain remembers. It carries whispers. You can hear them if you're quiet enough. If you're foolish enough." He laughed a little too loudly and shook his head. But outside, the fog crept back into the streets, curling around lampposts like fingers. Even as he walked away, he could hear faint murmurs in the distance. They sounded like voices speaking a language he almost remembered, familiar yet alien. Whispers in the dark that night. The house was colder than he remembered. Eli lit a single lamp, its glow struggling against the darkness. Shadows clung to corners, moving as though alive. A subtle tapping started, soft, rhythmic, coming from somewhere in the walls. "Not again?" He muttered, tracing the outline of the master bedroom. The tapping became a soft whisper. "Eli, come." He froze. There was no one in the room, but the air vibrated with intention. Each whisper seemed to layer on the last, forming a chorus of voices speaking all at once. One in particular stood out, a small childlike voice pleading, "Find her before it finds you." Eli tried to recall Clara. She had been 7 when she disappeared. A child in a town that never quite recovered. And yet he could not remember her face clearly, just fragments, flashes in the corners of his memory, as if the town had stolen her image from him. The legend surfaced by the next morning. Eli had started piecing together what he had always avoided. The town had stories. Stories whispered by old neighbors. Tales of missing children, strange disappearances, and a curse woven into the town itself. One elderly resident, Mr. Whitlock, sat on his porch, rocking gently. His eyes were cloudy yet sharp. "You're back for the truth," he said without greeting. "What truth?" Eli asked. Whitlock's lips twitched. "The town's never told you, never let anyone know." "But legends? Legends are not lies. They are warnings wrapped in story." Eli leaned in. "The first disappearance was 100 years ago," Whitlock began. "A child vanished in the rain, just like Clara. Every few decades, someone new disappears. Some say it's the work of spirits, others say it's the town itself, angry at those who stay too long, who pry too much. They call it the Rainkeeper. It remembers, it watches, and it chooses." Eli's heart pounded. "And people just vanish?" Whitlock nodded. "Some return. Most do not. They say the rain brings them back, but not whole. You've already felt its pull, boy. The town whispered to you. You can't ignore it now." Micro-events escalate. Over the next few days, Eli's perception of Briar's End began to warp. Small things shifted around him. Doors closed that he was sure he left open. Shadows lingered too long in hallways, crouching like watchers. Neighbors crossed the street when they saw him. No one spoke directly to him except to warn. In one alley, he saw a young boy staring from behind a fence, eyes wide and blackened at the edges. "Don't go," the boy whispered, before vanishing into the fog. At night, the rain returned. It began gently, pattering against the roof, soft and insistent. The whispers came back, louder, layering with scratching sounds from the walls. Eli couldn't sleep. Every creak, every sigh of the house felt like footsteps approaching. He discovered an old journal hidden beneath floorboards in Clara's room. The pages were yellowed, brittle, filled with frantic writing. "The town knows. The rain watches. I hear it in my dreams. It calls the missing. I am not safe. If you read this, do not stay when it comes." The handwriting became illegible halfway through. Only fear remained on the pages. Warnings from the living neighbors began approaching him cautiously, drawn to his inquiries but hesitant to speak. "You shouldn't be looking," muttered Mrs. Carmichael, her hands trembling as she clutched a bundle of cloth. "The Rainkeeper doesn't forgive curiosity. It remembers everything, everything you've done, and everything you haven't done yet." Eli pressed for more. What happens when it chooses someone? She swallowed hard. You disappear, or worse. You come back but not yourself. Hollow, broken. The town protects itself by letting it claim what it wants. Even his own instincts began to fray. At night he questioned his sanity. Was he imagining the whispers, the shadows, the eyes in the fog? Yet signs were undeniable. A chair moved overnight, scratches etched into walls, fleeting glimpses of a child in the corner of his vision, always gone when he turned. The curse tightens one night. He followed the whispers outside, heart hammering. Rain poured down in sheets, cold and relentless. The fog was thick, so thick he could barely see the street in front of him. Yet in the distance a shape appeared, Clara or something wearing her face standing under a street lamp. Eli. She called. It's waiting. Don't let it catch you. He ran toward her, but the street shifted. Houses stretched, twisted. Doors appeared where none had existed, and time felt uneven. Moments stretching like hours, hours collapsing into seconds. He tried to reach her, but she vanished, leaving only wet footprints leading into an alley that wasn't on any map. The whispers intensified, coming from all directions. The rain, the rain, the rain. Eli realized he was not alone. Something followed him, patient, slow, unrelenting. Every instinct screamed to flee, but there was nowhere to run. Every alley, every street, every house seemed part of the same trap, a maze designed to hold him, to force him to see what the town wanted revealed. The breaking point by the end of the week, Eli had stopped sleeping. He wandered through the streets at night, muttering to himself, tracing the legends and whispers, desperately trying to find a pattern, a weakness. He confronted Mr. Whitlock again. Tell me what it wants. Whitlock's eyes were dark, fearful. It doesn't want things. It wants witnesses. It wants the stories told. That's why it chooses some, leaves others. You're here because it knows you'll remember. You'll see. You'll speak. Or it will take you too. That night he heard footsteps above him. Not soft, not tentative. Heavy, deliberate, pacing above the ceiling like a predator circling. He climbed to the attic, hands trembling, only to find nothing. Yet the whispers were louder than ever. You can't leave. You can't hide. You can't forget. Eli understood with gut-clenching certainty the town's legends were not myths. They were rules. Rules that had been obeyed for generations, silently enforced by something older than Briar's End itself. And now he had stepped into the center of it. The rain returned at midnight. This time it wasn't gentle. Each drop pounded the roof and streets like a drum, relentless, insistent. Eli could hear it through the walls of his old house, rattling windows, filling every room with its voice. He couldn't stay. He knew it, but when he stepped outside, the fog was thicker than ever, curling around him, closing him in. Streets he knew had changed, alleys shifted, houses stretched and leaned as if alive, the town itself mocking him. A figure emerged in the mist. Clara, or what she had become. Her face was pale, wet, and shimmering under the street lamp. Her eyes were black holes, and her mouth moved, whispering words that chilled him to the bone. Eli, you shouldn't have come. It remembers you. It always remembers. Before he could respond, the fog surged forward, carrying a chorus of whispers, voices from every missing child, every frightened soul the rainkeeper had claimed. The air vibrated with them, overlapping, suffocating, relentless. Eli stumbled through the streets, the fog twisting into forms that seemed human for a heartbeat before collapsing into nothing. A door slammed behind him. He tried to escape into the diner, once warm and familiar, but it was gone. In its place, a hallway stretched endlessly, walls lined with photographs of every child who had vanished in Briar's End. Their eyes followed him. Accusing, pleading, confronting the horror, he ran, and the whispers turned into screams. The rainkeeper was no longer a presence outside him. It had merged with the town itself. The very fog seemed to strike at him, curling around his limbs, tugging him to the ground. Every instinct screamed, fight, run, survive, but nothing worked. From the shadows, Clara stepped forward. You see it now, don't you? Her voice trembled, half child, half echo of the rainkeeper itself. It chooses, and tonight, it chooses you. Eli backed away, desperate, heart pounding. I don't understand. Why me? Her black eyes glimmered. Because you came back. You remembered. You asked. And the rain. It always answers those who speak too loudly. He fell to his knees, the whispers swirling around him. He could see visions, children screaming silently, townspeople frozen in terror, shadows devouring light. The town was alive and he was inside it. Desperation gave him clarity. He grabbed the first object he could find, a rusted mirror from a hallway, cracked and jagged. He raised it, facing the mist. For a moment the fog recoiled, the whispers softened. Eli. Clara's voice faltered. Don't. He smashed the mirror on the ground. The shards glinted, reflecting glimpses of the rainkeeper itself. An ever-shifting mass of fog, shadow, and faces, writhing and screaming. A silence fell, then the rain stopped. The fog lingered, but it was weaker. For the first time, he breathed freely. The psychological collapse, but it was too late. Even though the rainkeeper withdrew, the imprint remained. Eli could feel the voices inside him, whispering, tugging, refusing to be forgotten. Every shadow in Briar's End could be a memory of it. Every puddle, a reflection of the taken. He realized the horror wasn't over. It had already consumed him. He wandered the town at dawn, streets quiet, houses empty. The fog had lifted, the rain had stopped. But the photographs of missing children remained in his mind, flashing when he closed his eyes. The whispers were gone, but the fear lingered, like a scar beneath his skin. Neighbors emerged, whispering cautiously. "You made it through," Mrs. Carmichael said. Her face was solemn, eyes wary. "Most don't." Eli nodded, but he felt hollow. He could never unhear the whispers, never unsee the shadows moving in every corner. The town had let him survive, but at a cost. The story had claimed him as witness. He carried the curse of remembering, of knowing the rainkeeper's truths. Resolution, 1,700 words. Days passed, but Briar's End had changed him. Every time it rained, he felt it, felt the pull of voices and the weight of the missing. Even in sunlight, he could hear whispers under his breath. Eli, remember, don't leave. Don't forget. He tried to leave town. He packed, drove to the edge of Briar's End, and glanced back. The town was still, quiet, innocent looking, but he knew better. The rainkeeper waited, patient, eternal, always ready for the next curious soul. He returned home one night to find the attic window open. The same wet poster from Clara's room lay on the floor. "Have you seen Eli Tanner?" His hands trembled as he picked it up. Outside, a figure moved in the fog, a child, small and pale, watching him. He recognized her immediately, Clara, or what she had become, forever bound to the rain. She raised a hand, beckoning silently. Eli knew without thinking, without questioning. He could not leave. The town would never let him go. He spent hours in the old house, listening, writing down the legends as best he could, recording every whisper, every warning, every story of the rainkeeper. He became the town's chronicler, the lone witness to the horror that had claimed so many. But at night, when the wind rattled the windows, he felt the presence in the corners. The fog crept closer, and he heard it, unmistakable. "It remembers you, always, and soon. It will come for you." Eli stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. The house seemed alive, breathing, patient. The town waited outside. He knew sleep would not come. Not tonight. Not ever. Briar's End was eternal. The rain was eternal, and the story had chosen him to remember. Forever. He closed his eyes, but the whispers continued, and somewhere, in the shadows of the streets he once knew, the rainkeeper moved closer.